Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the first episode of the first official season of the In My Father's House podcast. I am your host, Reah Stevenson, with my co-host,
Ruel Stevenson.
First and foremost, we just want to thank you guys so much for the love and support shown during our introductory series. And with that being said,
Welcome to season 1. So our theme for the season will be understanding God. And it was actually a theme that we came up with. Well, actually, Reah came up with that theme. And we're looking to pretty much, in 2022, a lot of people today, they're on different side of the pendulum. Some believe there's a God, some believe there's no God, and some believe that, hey, they have no belief. So people always ask, how do you know there's a God? And they're wondering, because man today believe that, there are things that they can't explain. So because they can't explain it, they create their own facts. There's actually a saying, with the absence of information, man create their own facts. So we're pretty much trying to talk about our journey, our relationship with our Father, and how is it that we derived with our faith. So would that be, yeah?
Yeah, with our topic specifically for this episode today is basically understanding. Of course, our theme is understanding God, but we want to basically delve more into the topic of who God is, because I'm sure we touched on it during our Q&A series, but we just want to go into that. And one of my main, motivations for starting off with this topic is because, God is the foundation for everything that we're doing here. So, of course, it would only make sense that we start off with him. And so basically understanding God from, of course, the youth aspect. Well, from me speaking from a youth aspect, and then of course Dad speaking from his adult aspect, and
well, I don't exactly know if it's a youth and an adult, but it's just pretty much an aspect. You know what I mean? Because most times, okay, so I went to college, and just we'll get into it. While I was in college, I took philosophy, and in philosophy, I kind of touched on it before, where the professor was teaching, about all these philosophers that they believe in a God, or some didn't believe in a God. Some you kind of don't even know if you're confused. And a lot of students today are going to school and they're listening to these subjects. I give you one of the arguments, right? If there's a God, and you might probably, face this as well when you take philosophy. There's an argument that says, if there's a God and he's all knowing, and he's all powerful, and evil exists, it means there's no God. And I kind of struggle with that, because many times we leave out certain things. And when you leave out certain things, that the simplest things that God has given to us, we tend to make a blunder. And so I remember when the professor was speaking, I was stirred. No, there were people in the class that was getting antsy and different things. But for me, I'm more like the person that stayed quiet, listen, but I had to say something. For me personally, college was not just, I didn't want to be there pretty much. So if I'm going to be there and you're going to teach me something and you're going to go on error, I'm going to correct you. Or I'm going to speak about what I need to speak about. So on the break time, I went to the professor and I spoke with him, and I was like, I need to talk to you about something. I don't agree with that argument, because, the fact that God doesn't do anything does not mean that he's not a God, or there's no God. It doesn't, because at the end of the day, if I create something and I build something and I see it's not going the way that I want it to go, or I give it free will, it's up to me if I want to do something or not. It doesn't mean that I does not exist, I don't exist, or it doesn't mean that. So I went up to him and I told him, I said, the argument needs to be rephrased. And I wrote it back on the board. I said, if there's a God and he's all knowing, he's all powerful, and and evil exists, and man has free will, does not mean that there's not a God. You see, many people or philosophers today try to remove the aspect of free will. And it's something that's been given to us. We're not robots.
Yeah.
When you program a robot, it only can do what you program it to do. But with us, we can choose to believe in a God or we can choose not to believe in a God. And that is the point of everything. God wants people to make a decision and make a choice to follow him. Now, if you didn't have the choice, now I ask you, right? If you didn't have the choice to follow God, would that be fair to you?
No.
Why not?
Because God isn't like a dictator or a ruler. He allows you to make your own choices. And so it wouldn't be fair because it's like that isn't who God is, you know? And so it wouldn't be like, I guess, like a fair impression of him in a sense. Because God isn't going to force himself upon you. Because, like, I don't remember exactly where in the Bible, but I remember it's mentioned where it's like, he'll try with you. But once you make it clear that it's like, you don't want to work with him, he has to stand back because it's like, you've made your choice. So forcing God upon you, he wouldn't do that because, one, that's not fair to you to be your own person because he made human as intellectual beings to form their own opinions and their own decisions. So forcing himself upon you wouldn't be a true reflection of his true character.
Good point. And I remember, in Revelation, it talks about, he says, "Behold, I stand at the door and I knock." No, when you think about I stand at the door and I knock, if any man hear me and open unto me, I will come in and sup with him. Here is it that the supreme God of the universe that created everything, even us, and sustained everything because it said he sustained everything by the word of his power. Here is it that he's standing at the door knocking. At that door of what? Our hearts, right? And not our physical heart, but the heart of our mind, right? Because you don't think with your heart. People always refer to their heart like, okay, this is my heart or what. But it's actually your mind, right? So he's pretty much standing, knocking at your mind. Hey, I'm trying to come in. I'm trying to come in. Let me in. And most people today, they're busybodies. They're very busybodies, so they can't hear, or they're filling their minds up with video games and movies and music and things like that. So they can't hear, but God is simply gently just knocking.
Yeah.
Just knocking. And he said, if any man hear and open unto me, I will come in and sup. So what do you think of that? What's your thoughts on that? God being there, knocking, trying to get in. Now, is that force?
Not at all. Not at all. And it just, in a sense, it makes God, I wouldn't say not less, but like just more like you and I in a sense, where it's like, he's not here to like rule over you. He's not here to like, this is what I say, do this. Because I mean, if he was to do that, then he could have easily destroyed Satan easy and be like, that was wrong, never do it again, over with. But like, that's not what he's about, He's here to, I guess, he's here to just be a guide, be a leader, be a father, be a friend. And of course, like, a friend isn't going to be like, you do this my way or no way, So it's going to be more of like a thing of just working together. It's a partnership. And you got to do your part. And of course, God will do his part. And, teamwork makes the dream work.
I know that's so interesting that you said teamwork because it's funny. A lot of people today, and I've spoken to people, right, and that free will plays a big part in our lives today because without free will we'll be robots.
Yeah.
Without free will, can you imagine if God, right, who's all knowledge, all wise, if when, of course, we know we have an enemy, Satan, right? But he wasn't always Satan. And most people are like, well, God created evil or God created the devil. No, God did not create the devil, actually. He created a being, a darling son called what? Lucifer. He created Lucifer. And Lucifer means light bearer. He was supposed to bear the light of God and present it to the rest of the universe. But he got, according to Isaiah and Ezekiel, he got lifted up. He became prideful.
Yeah.
So because of that now, he went against God, he rebelled. Now, had God wiped him off of the universe right there and then, right? His charge against God would have been proven like, okay, God is a tyrant.
Exactly.
He would have been, he's a tyrant. You see if you misbehave, or if you don't listen or you don't obey, off with his head. The depiction that we've seen of monarchs and kings and queens and where they just kill you because you're not listening or you're not subject. But God is so gentle, he's so patient. Even with our enemy himself, who now understand this. Lucifer is no longer Lucifer, right? He's no longer that. According to Revelation, I think it's 12, I think it's 9. He's no longer Lucifer. He's actually now that old serpent called the devil and Satan, right? So that's who he is right now.
Yeah.
And those names have different meanings. So that's who he is. I just want to clarify that real quick. He's no longer Lucifer, right? He's the devil. He's the old serpent. He's Satan, right? He's our enemy. Now, with understanding who God is and how he is, he's been portrayed as being this dictator, like he's a tyrant. But he's even suffering along with our own enemy.
Yep.
And he's suffering along with us. So many times people they're but I don't want to really I want to hear what you have to say, because
I was just thinking, because I remember just now you mentioned how Satan was once a perfect being, and that just makes you, I guess in a sense, question the deeper meaning of how can a perfect being in a perfect environment with a perfect God fall, or not fall, but in a sense just become not perfect. Where did that come from? And I guess we'll of course talk about it in a different episode, but it just makes you question there has to be more to it. And of course there's some stuff that we're not supposed to know, but it's how,
well, and that's why they call it the mystery of iniquity.
Yeah,
it's a mystery, right? And the funny thing is, though, it's even in that sense, right, you see the fairness or the justice of God.
Yeah,
he has free will. Perfect being, perfect situation, perfect God, yet there's iniquity found in him. And literally, how does that happen?
Yeah.
No, if God was a tyrant and God was someone who we shouldn't love or we shouldn't follow and that kind of stuff, so he'd have been dead a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the justice of God, right? The mercy of God, right? Because, that's why all of us right now are now wiped out. If we were living back in the days when they were doing the sacrificial times, right? We would have run out of doves, bullocks, and can you imagine having, because you sin, right now you have to go every day and pray over this lamb, slit its neck, and then you got to be doing that over and over again. It's
and it also makes you think as well, because in the Bible it says the wages of sin is death. And if God was this tyrant that people painted him to be, why would he give his own son to pay for the sins that he never even committed once in his life?
That's
a
serious.
Queen of whatever country or king would never even think to give up their own sole heir to pay for some pauper who decided to steal from some man.
And the funny thing is, it's it's not even just that. I like that point actually, but I look at myself as actually being a father, right? Having 2 daughters. But when I had just you, can you imagine, and I think about it, I have subjects and they're not listening. So to save them from my enemy or their enemy, I decided I'm going to send my daughter, my only daughter, right? My only daughter, to save them. But knowing that they will not be grateful.
Yeah.
And they will still end up back in the situation or worse than where they were in the first place. In my head, I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. Y'all gonna have to die. And it's funny. And people don't understand, and they don't really take this into consideration, right? But God don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't have to say he didn't have to send Jesus Christ to die for us. That's the once you understand, right, that God without doing anything will still be God. He'll still be all knowing, all powerful, all loving. He'll still be justified in anything that he does, because why? You can't change who he is.
Yeah.
He said, I am who I am. You can't change it. So the fact that he did something though, we're blessed.
Yeah.
We're loved. Right? You know, we don't see it.
So now, like, coming from my, I guess, a younger person aspect, because like I technically, like, I do believe there's like a youth aspect to it and there's like adult aspect, because like for me, I feel like in a sense we have a different relationship when it comes to God, because it's like, I mentioned this before when we were doing the Q&A, where it's like a lot of people, and especially in the church today, they base their relationship of God through the things that they've, like, the struggles they've been through and how God has brought them through that. And so for me, being a younger person who hasn't, like, gone out into the world, or, hasn't been faced with, like,
Struggles.
exactly,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I wouldn't say harder to have that belief, but in a sense, it's kind of like, I guess, just different, because it's like, I don't have that, like, connection. Like, for example, let's say I have a friend and we've been through a car accident together. Our relationship is like, we're like a bond now, because like we went through that.
Yeah.
We went through that together. But like for me and God, it's kind of like, I like growing up in the church. I know God, of course. There's never been a moment in my life where I didn't know there was a God. I didn't know about church and etc. But it's kind of like, for me, my belief, I have to, I guess, be more like,
Experimental.
exactly. Kind of like just more stronger in it, like develop it more, because like I don't have those past experiences to base it off of, where it's like, oh, God brought me through this, so of course, because there was nothing to bring me through necessarily. So I guess for me in that aspect, for as a young person growing up, and I'm sure some people can relate, it's kind of like I have to, I guess, just put more effort into building that relationship, because of course I know eventually there is going to be that time where I will have to go through those struggles, but using the time that I have now, where it's like I don't have those struggles, it's kind of like, if we have this bond now, when we go through that, it's no stopping it.
So it's kind of like, in a sense, I'm hearing you saying like a Daniel kind of experience, right? Like they had Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and they were well taught men that, when they were captured from Babylon, they actually purposed in themselves to not defile themselves with the portion of the king's meat, and these men, because of they didn't have an experimental relationship with God.
Yeah.
They actually had a relationship taught to them by their parents.
Exactly.
And kind of like you are, right? And then they were placed before kings. They were eunuchs in Babylon. But it wasn't just them that was captured. It wasn't just 4 men. It was actually hundreds, even maybe thousands of eunuchs, and children of Israel, children, and they were captives. So they went into Babylon. And as you know, the story went on that, Daniel actually oversaw 3 different empires, Babylon, Medo Persia, and Greece, right? But he was actually like the second in command pretty much, because he actually, when Nebuchadnezzar had his dream, he actually, the Lord used him to interpret and to share with Nebuchadnezzar, right? Even, and he was well known. Yeah. So, but with that being said, the Bible, the thought came to me, it says, faith cometh by hearing, and hearing cometh by the word of God. So when you study the word of God and you read the word of God, you start to develop a thought process. Now, understanding that your mind, and again, you don't study the Bible or you don't read the Bible with just your understanding. Right? He said, lean not unto your own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So it's so funny, as you read, stuff is recording in your mind. Many times you have to think about it this way. And when you eventually one day, you start to see a young man, or the young man start to see you. What's one of the things in order to build that relationship, what is it that he has to do or you have to do? What's that one thing?
What do you mean?
Like, for him to get to know you, right? What does he have to do to get to know you?
Oh, communicate.
Well, communication is one, right? But in one word, it begins with T, it's called time.
Okay.
So you have to spend time. When you start to spend time with that person that you love, it develops a relationship. You start to understand their mindset. You start to understand how they think. and they understand how you think, and then you guys start to share back and forth, right? And you're right. You may not have the experiences that I have gleaned over the years. There are many experiences that I can literally share. One of them that's coming off the top of my head is just one that I actually dealt with last year. I think, when I was working for this. No, I can't call the name of the company,
Yeah.
but I was working for this huge, huge airlines.
Yeah.
Can't call no name, but I got on with the company, and literally, I was working. But immediately, they hired me to write the same day and everything. I went through training, and while I was going through training, the last day of training, we had to choose our schedule. They said they called it bid for your schedule or whatever. And I was trying to get something that I get Saturday and Sunday off. Well, so funny, I only get Tuesday and Wednesday off. That means I had to work from Wednesday to Sunday, just start to Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
And I'm like, hold up, pause. I can't come in here any Saturdays because it's something that it's already ingrained. It's like
Yeah.
I am not going to do this. Coming over to the United States now, I got a nice cushion job. You know what I mean? Working in the office and everything. Huge office. As a matter of fact, the company is no longer here. It's called. Some of you guys may not remember, but there's a company back in 1999, MCI WorldCom. Yeah, that was before you.
I don't even. That doesn't ring any bells
I know,
whatsoever.
right? I mean, but most of you guys understood that, or for those that Enron, if you remember Enron, well, WorldCom was a part of Enron umbrella, and they went bankrupt and everything. Well, I used to work for MCI, and it was a huge telecommunication company, and I remember I took the job, and they gave me a schedule where I actually would have to go into work at 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Like 2 p.m.
2 p.m. to like 9 or 10 or something, I don't know. And I actually went to work. I went to work, but I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like you've never had the feeling of knowing that this is totally like
Right.
you're walking to your grave. I'm there walking. I would go to church, and then at 12, because it took me like 2 hours to get to Dunwoody on the train and stuff and so. So I'd leave Belvedere Church, catch the bus, catching the train. I'm there like all the while in my head, I'm like, I can't believe this. I'm actually going to church. Sorry, going to work. I can't believe I'm going. And I would go to work and I would sit down. I'm just calm because at any moment now, I'm expecting the lightning bolt to come through the ceiling and strike me dead. You know what I mean, or something. And when the sun goes down, and I'm like, I made it until next week. And it's so funny. I never stood up at that point. I was young. I never stood up for not working this Sabbath. I never even mentioned it. So fast forward now. Well, I got fired from that job actually for some crazy stuff. And
I mean, it may be.
you know what I mean? Hey, but I trust me, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. But the funny thing is, after being let go from that job, I told myself I would never again work on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Little did I know, fast forward, 10 years later, I would have to be faced with the same challenge again when I worked for the government. Can't name that, but I worked for the government. And then, you know what I mean, I told them I can't work for, I'm not going to work on Sabbath. And they made a concession. That in itself was a fight. I think you and I were speaking at that time. I think you were 3 years old.
Was that?
That's,
That wasn't when you had to like work the all night thing, right?
yes, that was, yeah,
okay,
yeah. So, I worked for government, and then they changed the schedule and put me to work nights and everything. So it kind of worked out. I ended up going to sleep. Oh, couldn't say that, right? But then fast forward. So now here's how it is, right? Here's how the cards are stacked. So in dealing with the battle, or in that battle, right? The enemy won the first round.
Yeah.
Right? I went to work and I worked in this is where the stage is set.
Right.
I worked in the Sabbath. And you know what I mean? So he won. Cool. Battle number 2, right? Same thing. God won. Because God showed up and they actually modified my schedule to where I could work and not have to violate matter of conscience, right? And that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? That thing, like, I was still stressed. I was fasting. You and I spoke, and they would, because I would get you in the weekends and that kind of stuff. I was going through a lot of stuff. This is like back in 2010, so I was going through a lot of stuff at that time. Fast forward again now. So now it's 1-for-1.
Yeah.
So when you have a game and you play in a match or something, and there's a tie, we have to have.
Tiebreaker.
You have to have a tiebreaker. So then fast forward again to 2021. I'm back in the situation. Same thing. But this time, it's like, yo, it's not that serious. You know what I mean? Like, I'm seasonal, you know? And they took this stuff very, very serious. Like, I want to make this a career. I'm like, no, I don't want to make this a career. Anyway, long story short, here's how it's stacked now, right? So in match number 1, you could say the enemy won.
Right.
Match number 2, God won, right? So match number 3 now is the deciding point. And here's how the bases got stacked, right? Or the bases got loaded. So after I refused to come in and work on the Sabbath and everything, I got the first write-up. That was serious. And the manager at the time, he was getting loud and talking down to me and different things. But I'm like, man, whatever. So write-up number 1. I got involved with religious liberty for the church and asked people to pray for me. And people were like, I was just on Facebook. It was really something that was big. Then I got second write-up. Right? I'm like, Lord, where are you? This, you know, it's funny. It's not, it was like, if I tell you, I can't even say how much I was making, right? But it's one of those things like, are you serious? Are you serious right now? You think for this? This is stress for no reason. But I was determined, I will never again work on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. So got 2 write-ups. The third one, 3 strikes and you're out. So, and the funny thing is I had a dream, right? And in the dream, yes, in a couple weeks before all this stuff that happened, I had a dream. And in a dream, I was in a classroom, and on the board, the professor write, what is 2,500 divided by 100? Right? And I laughed because the answer is very simple. It's 25. Right? 100 can go into 2,500 25 times. So while I'm going through all this stuff now, I'm contacting lawyers, religious liberty department, and everything. And in my head, I'm like, man, I'm about to get $25 million. Man, that's going to be dope. 25 million? Shucks. With the climate of the world right now, man, I can take care of my family. Everything is going to be great. 25 million, bro. Look, man. But it's so crazy. Remember, I got 2 write-ups already, right? I went to work the Sunday. It was actually July 25th. July 25th. That was a Sunday because I didn't work the 24th, the 24th, which was Saturday. The 25th, nobody said anything to me. The 25th, nobody said anything to me. Which was a Sunday. And I found out from a friend, somebody I made a friend, that I only needed to work over a certain amount of hours and then my season is over. So then the Monday now I had to go to court, right? So I couldn't work. So I went to court and everything like that, so I couldn't go to work. The Tuesday and the Wednesday I'm off. The Thursday I had to go back to court. So I was able to get in touch with somebody from that company, HR, and my season ended on the Thursday. So I no longer report to work. But nobody said anything to me on the 25th. And on Thursday, my season ended. My manager called me that Friday. And he's like, hey, I need to have a conversation with you.
Oh, gosh.
And I was stressed. I'm like, why is he calling me? Like, you know what I mean? And I called the HR person and I was like, hey, did y'all take care of that? She's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Just inform him that your season is ended and everything like that. I happily called him. Hey, what's going on? He's like, hey, what's going on, man, buddy? You know, when you have a chance, come down and let's have a conversation or whatever, whatever. I don't know if I was going to be written up or fired. I don't know.
Lord.
But all I know, I informed him that my season ended Thursday. Nobody said anything the 25th of that month. So it wasn't 25 million. It was that deciding. It was that deciding day. It was that day that, and you know, people say, oh, it's coincidence. I don't know. But the Lord, you see,
Stuff like that, you can't just say that's coincidence.
You can't make that stuff up.
You can't.
You can't, right? And the funny thing is like, God is like, you have to understand, He's so intimate. He wants to be intimately connected to us. But we're so busy, or busy bodies doing everything else, right? And you know, so that's one of the little testimonies I want to kind of share as in terms of experience, right?
Because it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I've noticed that like there has been moments where I have been faced with issues when it comes to like, you know, the Sabbath and stuff. And for example, like SATs, I have SATs coming up, and literally all the SATs are on Saturdays. And so in order to get like a Sunday testing, you have to get like a letter from your pastor or whatever. It's because I grew up in the church, it's like there's no question about it. Like when I saw that they're all on Saturdays, all on Saturdays, first thing that came to my mind, is there a Sunday option? There wasn't like, oh, well, let me see if I could try to get it on a Saturday. There was no question about it. Same thing with like school events. If there's like an event on a Saturday, I was like, oh, can't go. Nope. It's not even like, it's not like a thing that bothers me, because like, it's just, I'm used to it now. So it's like, if I'm faced with that, I feel like it's good to know that I have that confidence in both my faith and like just my upbringing to know like, there's no issue when it comes to that, because it's like, I'm used to it. I guess in a sense, conditioned to it. So like, when I'm faced with that, there's no issue. It's just, if I miss out, I miss out. It's always next time.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But then what happens though? What happens if there's no Sunday option? And then you can't do you can only do the SAT on the Sabbath or Saturday, right? And you know, what do you do then? Do you still go? Do you somehow? Okay, well, let me just do it this one time, or God is not going to mind. Like, what would you do?
It's easy to say like, oh, I'll figure something out, but it's like, you know, like once you're in a situation like that, it's like, what can you do? Because like, of course, I can sit here and say like, oh, you know, I'll figure something out. But if I'm faced with like the stress of, you got to do this to get into college, you got to do this to get scholarships, it's like, what do you do?
And so my question to you would be, what would you do?
I mean, I guess sitting here now, my first thing that I'll do is, of course, turn to God, because like He can work anything out. And then, of course, I guess just figure something out, because I can't. If I go to that testing center on a Saturday, even if I pass, I wouldn't feel right in myself, because there's like a sense of like, yeah, you passed or whatever, cool, but that sense of guilt would just burden me. It's like, I really did this knowing this isn't how I was raised, this isn't what I was taught, etc. So it's like, you know, I guess my first instinct thing to do, like I mentioned before, when I was looking up other options, would just go to God, see what we can work out, contact somebody, see what we can work out. And if there isn't something I could do, I don't know. I guess just not do it. Thankfully, there is another option, but in the event that there isn't, it's like, what do you do?
Okay, so let's deal with the first one. You have to go to work on Saturday.
Yes.
They said you have to come in on Saturday and work. We need you today. If you don't come in on Saturday, you're fired. That's the question. If you don't come into work today, you're fired.
Then I'm fired.
Okay. So my question to you, if your business have to open on Saturday, what do? Do you open your business?
Of course not. Of course I wouldn't. But like I said, it's easy to say that when you're outside of the situation. Because knowing me, like how I want my business set up, I don't want weekends at all. I don't want Saturday nor Sunday.
God loves us so much. He says, he that toucheth you, toucheth the apple of my eye. God referred to us as the apple of his eyes. So how do we refer to him then? He said, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Exactly.
You are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. So God wants us to be friends with him. What does that mean to you?
I guess for me, in a sense, it's like obeying like your friend. In a sense, it's having that respect as a friend. Where it's like, for example, if a friend comes to me telling like, "Oh, please don't eat peanuts around me. I'm allergic to them." I'm not gonna go around them eating peanuts because as a friend, like that's not a friendly thing to do, you know. And that isn't like, I guess in a sense that is a command. But it's more so just them asking me because, like, even God, he doesn't necessarily command us. He's given us the commandments, but at the end of the day, they're not, like, restrictions and rules like we just said in the sense of, like, he's going to beat us down with it every 24/7 because, like, at the end of the day, we still have that choice to make, like, either we're going to follow the commandments. Like, for example, you had the choice if you wanted to go into work or not. And that is a commandment. That's the fourth commandment. So God gave you that choice. Now it's up to you as an intellectual being to make that choice of whether, hey, am I going to obey God's word and be his friend the same way he wants to be my friend? Or am I going to go against him and side with the enemy?
Perfect point. That's amazing. That's amazing. And people don't look at it that way. Go against God, side with the enemy.
Because there isn't in between.
I can't say it any better than that. I can't. It's like I don't understand. I can't say it any better than that. Matter of fact, you know, and that leads to that topic that I want to get into, right? How many religions are there in the world today?
Yeah.
Right? And that's something that we have to go into. We have to talk about that because people have this misnomer. They're all smoke and mirrors. But I couldn't say it any better. There's no in between.
Yeah.
It's either God or Satan. That's it. And you know, if you notice, God said, if you love me. Now, the key word there is if. What is if? It's is a conditional statement.
Yeah.
It's a condition. If you love me, do this. Also, if you don't love me, then do that. There's no third, there's no middle ground. You know, like some people like to they like to live in the gray areas.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you call somebody out on living in the gray area, they get upset and annoyed. You know, you ask somebody, hey man, where do you want to eat? Oh, it don't bother me. Oh, wherever. It's not a big deal. Sure. They can't ever give you yes or no.
Yeah.
They're not going, they're not coming. They're not up, they're not down. It's like they just live in this gray area, and it's like, for somebody like me now, it annoys the mess out of me. It's like, can you imagine? All right, you're driving on the road, right? And you're going sightseeing. But you look over and you're like, hey, you want to go left or you want to go right? Like, no, you stuck. You stuck like Chuck.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know if you're going left or you're going right. It's like, okay, can you imagine? Let me get a next example, right? You're a guy dating or you're courting, right? And he gets down. And this whole one knee business, I don't know, but I got everything that getting down on one knee and all stuff, right? But he asked you to marry him.
Right.
And then you're like,
Like, what do you do now?
You guys courting, right? And you come to the point, a pivotal point in your relationship.
Yeah.
And he's like, my sweetheart Reah, will you marry me? And you're like, You're not yes or you're not no. You're like, what is that? He don't know if you should like leave or stay. And God said, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. It's like it's all or nothing. You have to make a decision. So the question is, if your job is telling you you have to work on the Sabbath, will you wait to get fired or will you move on? Like, what would you do? What's your thoughts?
What would I do in the situation of, well, when you say like move on to a different job opportunity?
Pretty much.
Yeah. If a job is forcing me to work on a Saturday and I have another job that's lined up where it's like you don't have the Saturday, it would only make sense to go somewhere else, because it's like, why waste? Well, because I don't, in a sense, would it really be wasting time if I stayed there and made a difference for other potential Seventh-day Adventists who want to come to that job? Or would it make me look as like a cop out in a sense? Which is something that I guess came to mind, because it's like, I had the option to go to this other job, leave this job, whatever. I'm over it.
What if you don't have the other option to go to that? There's nothing. You don't see the end. It's just nothing. You have to think, and it's just you. Or let's say it's you and your husband and your family, right? And that would be a major blow to your household income or whatever. What do you do? What if your husband is saying, go to work?
Then I made a wrong decision somewhere leading up to whatever wedding we had. There was a mistake made.
Well, and that's only coming from Job,
Yeah.
right? Because remember, Job's wife told him to like just curse God and die,
exactly.
right? So what if your husband is like, look, just okay, babe, look, if you don't work, right, and you lose this job, there's going to be like a big portion of our household income, and we're going to be able to sustain our lifestyle or whatever. What do you do? Do you go to work?
No, I honestly can't. Like envisioning it now, I can't go to work, because it's like, that'll not only be betraying myself as a person, but also be betraying God. And it's like, I can't not only like envision it, in my soul, I can't do that, because it's like, if I do that, I'll be betraying everything that I was taught, everything that literally makes me a person. Like, I consider like my, I guess, religion in a sense, who I am as a person, because it's what guides me day to day, etc. So it's like, I can't, if I betray that, who am I?
Okay. What if you're okay? Your husband's like, look, go to work, right? Keep the job. If not, he's walking out. He's leaving. I don't think they understand what I mean.
Adios. Goodbye. It's been real. No, because like I said, if he ends up like that, there was a mistake made. Because as my husband, of course, there's a criteria that has to be met. And so it's like, one of that criteria is, of course, we're on the same page. If I'm coming to you with a situation like this, then it shouldn't even be without a doubt. All right, well, we gonna figure something else out. If you get fired, I take more shifts or whatever till you find something else, and we just work it out. But if your reasoning or rationale or whatever is, oh, just keep the job, no. No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, every one of us have to make that decision at some point, and the test will come. It may not be with the Sabbath. Well, it may not be with the Sabbath directly, but that test will come.
Yeah.
And as you know, the enemy wants worship. And literally, that test of choosing to follow God on the seventh day or choosing to follow traditions of the world on the first day will be presented to every single person that's alive. And at that point, you have to make a decision. What will you do? So,
one thing I do want to know is, like, I guess your advice or what you would do in that situation. Make comments of just join the conversation, let us know, like, if you were faced with the situation of either you lose your job or you go to work, or you lose your family, friends, everything like Job, what would you do? Would you go to work and say, you know what, it is what it is? Or would you stand your ground? Let us know.
Please.
And with that being said, thank you for tuning into episode number 1. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for being here with us, and I hope we were a blessing.
We love you guys. Looking forward to hearing from you. Have a blessed day.